She was Queen of Scotland at 6 days old, Queen of France at 16, and she believed she had a rightful claim to the English throne. Her name was Mary Stuart, and she had it all beauty status and royal lineage. But she also had a fatal flaw, a reckless heart, that led her into a series of catastrophic decisions, ultimately costing her kingdom and her head. This is not the story of a tyrant. It's the tragedy of a woman who loved passionately, trusted blindly, and paid dearly for her desires. While her cousin Elizabeth I ruled with cold calculation, Mary ruled with a fiery heart. The rivalry between these two queens was not just a political struggle. It was a clash of personalities, worldviews, and ways of being women in a man's world. In the end, only one could survive. Mary's life began in tragedy and power. Her father, King James I of Scotland, died just 6 days after her birth, reportedly heartbroken after a military defeat. Mary Stuart, a newborn, became queen. To protect her from England's schemes, her mother, Marie de Guise, sent her to France at age 5 to marry the French heir, Prince Francis. Mary grew up in the opulence and refinement of the French court. Tall, beautiful, charming, and intelligent, she was adored and considered one of Europe's brightest jewels. In 1558, she married Francis, and a year later, when the king died, she became Queen of France. At 17, she wore the crowns of 2 nations. But joy was fleeting. A year later, Francis, a frail boy, died. Mary, at 18, was a widow. France was now ruled by her mother-in-law, Catherine de' Medici, who had no fondness for her. Mary had no choice but to return to Scotland, a land she barely remembered. Scotland in 1561 was not glamorous France. It was a rugged, divided land of feuding lords and a raging Protestant Reformation, led by the fiery preacher John Knox. To Knox, Mary was a threefold sinner, a woman, a Catholic, and a product of France's debauched court. He openly preached against the monstrous regiment of women. Mary, accustomed to refinement and deference, faced a brutal political reality. She was a Catholic, ruling a Protestant nation, a French woman ruling suspicious Scots. From the start, she was an outsider. Despite the challenges, Mary needed to remarry to produce an heir. After rejecting many suitors, she made a choice driven by passion rather than politics. She married her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. Darnley was tall, handsome, and of royal lineage, also a great-grandchild of King Henry VII. But that was all he had. He was arrogant, shallow, a drunkard, and fiercely jealous. He believed he deserved to rule as king, not just as the queen's husband. Mary's initial infatuation quickly turned to disgust. As she leaned more on her talented and intelligent private secretary David Rizzio, an Italian, Darnley's jealousy erupted. March 1566. One of the most horrific events in Scottish history unfolded. Mary, 6 months pregnant, was dining in her private chambers at Holyrood House Palace with Rizzio and her ladies. Suddenly, Darnley and a group of Protestant lords burst in. They dragged a screaming Rizzio from the Queen's feet despite her attempts to shield him. They hauled him to an outer room and stabbed him 57 times. Mary was held at gunpoint in her chamber, a pistol pressed to her belly, forced to hear her friends' dying cries. This was not just an assassination. It was a message. They wanted to terrorize the Queen, to show her who truly held power in Scotland. Mary survived, but her trust and love for her husband died that night. Mary had endured unimaginable trauma, but her true tragedy lay ahead, shaped by the next man to enter her life. If you want to know how a queen could fall into another deadly romantic trap, subscribe and turn on notifications. The downfall of Mary, Queen of Scots, is one of history's most tragic cautionary tales. Mary gave birth to a son, James, later King James Thursters of England. But she could not forgive Darnley. Then a new figure emerged, James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. Bothwell was Darnley's opposite, strong, decisive, bold, a man of action. And Mary, it seems, was utterly captivated by him. In February 1567, one night, the house where Darnley was staying exploded violently. Darnley's body and that of his servant were found in the garden, but they hadn't died in the blast. They had been strangled. Who killed the king? All of Scotland pointed to Bothwell. And when Mary, just 3 months after her husband's death, married the man suspected of his murder, the kingdom turned against her. It was an inexplicable act of political suicide. Was she abducted and coerced, as she later claimed? Or was she complicit in a plot to kill her husband to marry her lover? Whatever the truth to Scotland's lords, this was the final straw. The Scottish lords rose against Mary and Bothwell. After a military standoff, Mary surrendered, hoping to save Bothwell. He escaped and later died in a Danish prison. Mary was imprisoned at Loch Leven Castle. There she was forced to abdicate in favor of her infant son James. Her kingdom was lost. In 1568, in a daring act, she escaped. But instead of rallying forces in Scotland, she made another fateful decision. She fled south to England, seeking help from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth. Elizabeth faced a dilemma. She couldn't help Mary reclaim her throne without sparking war with Scotland's Protestant lords. Nor could she let Mary roam free in England, where she'd become a rallying point for Catholic plots. Elizabeth chose the safest path: house arrest. For the next 19 years, Mary lived as a prisoner in various English castles. Yet even in captivity, Mary remained a threat. She never stopped plotting. She wrote to Catholic powers begging for intervention. She corresponded with disaffected English Catholics. To many, she was still England's rightful queen, a martyr for the Catholic faith. Finally, in 1586, in the Babington Plot, Elizabeth's intelligence network intercepted undeniable letters in which Mary agreed to a plan to assassinate Elizabeth. Elizabeth had no choice. After months of hesitation, she signed Mary's death warrant. On February 8, 1587, at Fotheringhay Castle, Mary ascended the scaffold. She did not go as a sinner, but as a queen and martyr. She wore a crimson gown the color of Catholic martyrs hidden beneath a black cloak. Her final words were in Latin, "Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." It took 2 strokes of the axe to end her life. When the executioner lifted her head and shouted, "God save the Queen," her red wig fell off, revealing the short silver hair of a woman who had endured immense suffering. Why did a woman with everything end in such tragedy? The answer lies in the fundamental difference between her and Elizabeth. Elizabeth learned from her early years that survival demanded vigilance, self-control, and prioritizing reason over emotion. Mary, raised in the safety and splendor of the French court, never learned those lessons. She was a woman of passion, in an age that demanded cold calculation. She loved the wrong men at the wrong times and let her heart guide her political decisions. She was not a poor politician, but she was a terrible judge of character. She trusted the untrustworthy, and love blinded her reason. Her legacy is a tragic cautionary tale of how personal passions can destroy political power. The rivalry between Mary and Elizabeth was inevitable. One embodied Protestant order and political stability, the other Catholic hope and turmoil. In the 16th century, there was no room for both. The woman who ruled with her head triumphed over the one who ruled with her heart. Mary's death paved the way for her son James to become Elizabeth's heir. To understand the ultimate legacy of these 2 queens and the dawn of a new dynasty, you must watch King James I, the man who united the crowns of England and Scotland. Subscribe to explore how the son of an executed queen succeeded the woman who signed her death warrant and what happened next.